Welcome everybody to ICF Season 5, Episode 1. And today we are talking about Stop, Start, Continue. But just before we do, we'd love for you to join us in the chat and put down where you are from. Where are you calling from today? Where you hanging out? I know somebody's cutting grass at the moment. So share what you're doing, where you're from in the chat. It's going to be a great show. Um, we are just a friendly reminder to put mute. It is going to be a little bit more of an interactive show today, so that's going to be kind of exciting. But while one speaker is speaking, please make sure you put on mute, use the speaker view, as well as today's going to be, as usual, primarily in English, but we do have some Spanish and English that's going to be happening in the chats. There's no formal breaks, so you do you. If you need to take a little break, go for it, and we'll be done in about 90-ish minutes. And as I mentioned today, it's going to be a little bit more interactive, and there's something that at ICF Academy we are actually pretty darn good at doing, which is sharing in the chat. So when our presenter asks some questions, please feel free to share, to express. That's what ICF Academy does so well, when we learn from each other. So make sure that you have that icon ready. It is two little bubbles, and we'd love for you to we'd love to hear from you and how your summer was. Now, without further ado, I'd love to present our presenter for today, Kate Taylor. Kate Taylor has many years of camp experiences as camp director, program coordinator, and now as a camp consultant. She also works with the Women in Camp Summit and is a fan favorite here at the ICF Academy team. And she's going to be facilitating us today in a conversation. Typically, we have other speakers that are sharing their experiences. Guess what? Today, it's our experiences that are getting the spotlight, and Kate is going to help us walk through those experiences. Also, a fun little good thing to know is that how Kate is doing what we're doing today, you can do with your own camp to evaluate how your summer has been. But I'm going to let Kate tell us a little bit more. Kate, why don't you join us on the stage?
Hello, hello. Thanks, Gabs. Thank you, Gwynn, for your applause in sign language. That's always something I really appreciate. So I'm going to share my screen now so that we can get back to our slideshow. So just give me one moment to get that going. Here we go. And then, so our plan for today is we are using a model that is called Stop, Start, Continue, but we're going to do it in a different order: stop, continue, start. So for the stop section, we're going to talk about some things that your organization should stop doing before next season. So these are things that you maybe tried out for the first time this year and they failed, or they were things that you've realized that they're no longer working, that kind of thing. For continue, these are your wins. These are the things that they're working well. No need to fix them. Maybe a small tweak here or there, but we should continue doing them for next season. And then the starts are your fresh new ideas. So things that you want to try out for next season, things that came to mind through feedback that was given this summer, or things that just percolated into your brain while you were going through summer. So we're going to participate. We're going to share. We've got polls, we've got chat sharing, and we've got some presentation on screen if anyone is willing to jump in and be put on the spotlight. So first things first, poll number 1 is coming your way in a moment. So you should be seeing on your screen now a spot for you to fill in a short answer form. What are your ideas? Oh, sorry, I did the wrong poll. Let me try this again.
I love it.
Start with the stops. So this is your stop. So what do you think your organization needs to stop doing before next season? So things that were a little bit of a miss the mark, or like I said, you've tried them and they failed, or you've been doing it for a long time and it's starting to feel old and tired. So things that you want to stop doing. And then the second question is, in what area do you feel like your biggest struggles are coming from in this past camp season? And this is a ranked choice order. So like your top one and then your next, and your next, and your next. So areas are campers, staff, infrastructure, program, and outside factors. So, one of my struggles this past summer was the fact that our lake unfortunately got closed due to an excess of Canada goose poop that was causing fecal bacteria in the lake. So that was an outside factor that we had no control over, but it did have a pretty significant impact on a couple of weeks of our summer, unfortunately. See a few answers rolling in. It is classic goose behavior. Gabs, you're right. The Canada geese are just uncontrollable. They will do whatever they want to do. So it looks like we had a even split of 100% of people who answered this poll had problems with their staff and their infrastructure. But a good chunk of people had problems with their campers as well. A few less people putting in the program and a few people with outside factors as well.
I think the polls are quite fascinating, Kate, when you're looking
Hmm.
at the most issues um, versus the least. It's quite
Hmm.
fascinating.
Yeah. So some of our examples of what our organization needs to stop doing, stop trying to satisfy everyone. Isn't that just the truth? Not having a clear action plan ahead of time for summer season. So we're at a great moment of the year to make sure that we get that clear action plan in place. Um, Better ways to connect campers with nature. Micromanaging, we definitely need to stop micromanaging. Yep, that can be exhausting as a manager for sure. Stop decorating camp at the start of each session. Jeremy, that's very interesting. There are some rules we have been flexible about that we need to formalize more. Absolutely. It's great to have some solid policies in place. And another person who says, I feel like my organization has a lot of micromanagement with the staff, not allowing them to develop correctly because they have a lot of fear of failure. That's very interesting. So a couple of people with micromanaging. So I'm interested, why do you think of those ranked areas of concern that you were having with your organizations, why do you think that is? Like what is your organization particularly struggling with these campers or with these staff? Why do you think that that is where you're experiencing the most struggles? So if you want to pop in the chat some thoughts of where that might be coming from. Is there anyone who would like to share a story of a situation that you particularly struggled with this season? Um, Maybe something that you would like a little bit of extra advice on or something you'd like to delve into a bit. I have a few questions that we can get into. If you want to raise your hand if you'd like to be put on the spotlight. So Samir says, I think it's difficult to get campers to connect with each other due to technological issues. Do you mean by that, Samir, that folks are too attached to their technology and they're not used to connecting in person again? I think that that is something that many of us have
Yeah.
experienced. Yeah. Children won't eat anything or they're allergic to a lot of ingredients. Yes. I was actually seeing an article just the
Gwen's
other
like, I'm
day.
that person. I'm that camper.
Yeah. I saw an article just the other day that was talking about there is a significant uptick in picky eating with children, and it's not necessarily the parenting that's the problem, but it could be genetic factors from parents. So this like picky eating may be trickling down and having a little bit of a moment. All of the picky eaters are the ones that are reproducing, maybe. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah, and it's also interesting there's also allergies or even just dietary needs. I think the pressure on our kitchen team is so much higher
Hmm.
than 15, 20 years ago, and managing that. I think there's some good things that some camps are doing, but it is something that puts like that pressure on that kitchen, and we all know happy kitchen, happy camp, right? So
Absolutely.
it can be quite tough.
Yeah. So do I have any volunteers who would like to come onto the stage and share maybe one of their struggles that they had this summer? You can
I'd
raise your
love to
hand or you
hear
can
from
unmute yourself.
Simon if Simon's available, because he's talking about that it's mostly for them, the parents that are causing maybe some of the particular eaters. I don't know if Simon,
Hello,
if you're
hello
available.
everyone.
Hey,
Well,
bud.
we do have some issues with the food. We do have allergies, not that much, but we do have the picky eaters, and it's difficult, as you were mentioning. The kitchen staff gets concerned, and for example, we're eating chicken, but they don't want grilled chicken. They want nuggets, or they want a chicken in a different presentation. So we say, okay, well, we don't have that right now. We may have it tomorrow. No, no, that's what I want now. And we've been having some issues, not this year, but last year. We had some parents who came and picked their kids up uh, mid afternoon in the day camp because they wanted to give their kids the kind of food they wanted. So it is difficult. We've been trying to manage, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still a struggle. The situation with the food, also with the staff. The staff is also having some issues, and I have the idea, Gwen, that I'm one of those micromanagers right now. Perhaps that was one of my staff who didn't want to come on the stage here.
And do you think that they're like this, is this a problem that you feel like you can solve right now, Simone, or are there things that maybe would be helpful from your ICF community to help you get some ideas on that?
Well, we're trying to support our staff as much as we can. We had a difficult situation this year in Venezuela, given the political turmoil, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and something that I've been reading a lot in different news outlets about the development of staff, and we have, from our observation, we have a gap between 20 and 30 years old. We have a under 20 years old, very mature staff, and over 20 and 30 and below 30, they're not fully developed, and over 30, they're working on it. So we have that gap, and it may be due to our particular situation in Venezuela through the economic crisis. It may be due to executive functioning, given the screens, and the devices. So this is something that we're facing, and this is why we're micromanaging a lot. Um, for example, one issue: some of our staff could not come to camp to work in the day camp because their parents were concerned they were going to have some issues with the police. So this is why we're micromanaging, bringing them home and checking on them all the time because we have these concerns. But we can fix it, and we're working on that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
easy, but we're gonna work on that pretty hard.
Excellent. Thank you, Simone. I have Alexia as well, who has a picky eater story that she would like to share. Best picky eater story ever. So
The best ever. Can
let's
you
hear
hear
it.
me? You
Yes.
can hear me, right? Okay, so this summer, a boy came to our camp uh, because his two classmates were there. So he just arrived in the middle of the session, 2 week session, and his parents told me, he's a little bit picky. He likes his food really warm, really warm. And I was looking at them and said, I don't know if this will happen here because, we cook, it's warm when it gets to them, but it's not boiling hot. Also, we were in the middle of a heat wave. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I found out the next day that he didn't have dinner because we had penne, but they were not the right size.
Oh no.
So he eats penne, but not the size we provided.
Oh
No
boy.
one can beat this. No one can beat this. But
That's
anyway,
that's pretty bad. Yep. Different sizes of penne. Would not have expected to have to provide different sizes of penne.
so of course this boy left the next day because okay, he wasn't for the camp. I don't know why he came. But the thing
Mhm.
is, something that I think Samir wrote in the chat about parents worrying about their kids a bit too much, a bit excessively. The theme for us this summer was from parents that I want my child to be happy. If my child is not happy now, we're leaving. There's no patience
Mm.
to
Mhm.
experience this. I'm outside of my comfort zone,
Yeah.
but in a couple of days, this will be inside of my comfort zone. They don't understand this, no matter what
Mhm.
words I use to explain it. Or sometimes I give them the script. If your child says this, you say this. If they say this, then respond with this. Exactly what the words they should use. Because I see the child at camp. It's not a child that needs to go.
Mhm.
If the child needs to go, we call the parents and we tell them,
Yeah.
we tried, this is it for this year, let's try again next year. They don't need to complete the 15 days. And we will not keep someone who is miserable at camp.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'm just saying it's a process. You have
Yeah.
to go
You do
through
have to
it.
give it a little bit more than just a day to get into
They
the
have
swing. Yeah.
my child is not happy, I'm coming. And
Mm.
sometimes they
Mhm.
just come. They
Wow.
don't notify us. I see them at the door.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that there's definitely um there is a bit of a trend that we're seeing in a diminishment of resilience with kids and a diminishment in tolerance for discomfort. And I think that's not just on the part of the kids. As you say, it's the parents have a low tolerance for putting their child into any kind of discomfort or seeing them be uncomfortable. And I wonder what we can do as a camp profession to sort of spread the word a little bit more that this is an okay thing for folks to do. They should be uncomfortable and they should experience that growth zone. Let themselves step outside of the safe bubble so that they try new things and it gets them a much more complete life in that way, I think.
One last thing before I mute again.
Absolutely.
I think most of the parents internalize the feelings of their kids. So they
Mm-hmm.
cannot regulate what the anxiety that they have. Therefore, they cannot regulate the anxiety that their kids have.
Mm-hmm.
So the easy solution is, I'm coming to get you.
Yeah. So maybe we need to start offering parent camp and the kids get to stay home, but the parents have to come to camp for a week and experience it and they have to be outside their comfort zone and experience it.
I have a quick
Gwen has her,
example
yeah, Gwen, go for
of
it.
how I help deal with the discomfort. So it's very hot in Georgia in the summertime, and I was working in the garden with campers, and they were like, I'm sweating, I just hate this. And I said, what? Your body's air conditioning is working? And they were like, what? What are you talking about? And I said, if you are sweating, that means your body's air conditioning is working. And then when the breeze comes, it's going to cool you off. And
Mm-hmm.
that totally changed how they thought about it. So maybe we need to try to prep staff on what are the things that they're going to feel discomfort about and how to be able to do that. So then I started every time when they would come to the garden say, and I want you to be on the lookout. I want you to see if your body's air conditioning is working today or not. And they would look at me like, what? And then usually within 5 minutes, oh, I'm sweating. That means my body's working, right? And so then
Mm.
they stopped complaining about being hot and they were excited that their body's air conditioning was working.
That's fantastic. Yeah, having that reframe of the message can help them like retrain their brain to seeing it in the positive way. Absolutely. Thanks, Gwen. So wanted to do the stops first because I do think it is important to take the time to question how we do things every year and ask for the perspective of everyone on staff, what is working and what's not working. Because sometimes we do get stuck in our routines and we just do things the same way, even if they're not working anymore. So maybe it is a question of finding the right people to ask these questions to. How am I going to get this feedback from my campers, my families, my staff going forward? If you're not already doing some kind of a survey to your participants, then this should be something that you consider for them. Yes, Alexia. Was that a
So
hand? Yeah.
yes, it was in the stops. I didn't write it in the poll. Is also, I don't think that I would like to hire counselors that are 18 or 19 anymore. 18 is the adult age in Greece,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
above 18. So I think they are not mature enough to handle this responsibility. I hope this will change in the future years, because I remember in the past, our camp is 30 years old. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember in the early years, we could have counselors like 17, but mostly over 18. But the 18-year-olds were valuable. They added to the camp experience. This year, I was extremely disappointed by the majority of our 18-year-olds,
Mm-hmm.
which we hire basically for the first session, because the exams of the universities have not ended when we
Mm-hmm.
start. And I need those 18-year-olds that have just finished the last grade of school, of high school, and they gave their exams to go to the university, but they have not started yet. So we are in this in-between phase, and it's not good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Simon?
Actually, we need that energy, those 18 and 19 years old, and we believe we are forming our next generation. So a little bit of what I was saying before, we are having great results with our 17, 18, 19 years old. We're struggling a little bit with the older ones, and actually we're struggling a little bit with our seasoned staff, or not seasoned, but our returning staff. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the new staff is working all right. We're doing a great job with the training. We still need to work a little bit with it, but we're having some issues with the returning staff, and great results with the 18, 19 years old so far in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that something that I have definitely noticed with the staff teams that I've been working with recently is who is an 18-year-old would have a kind of similar maturity to what I was seeing with 16-year-olds prior. There is a little bit of a lack of common sense or a lack of initiative, that, maybe that's just my generational blinders on, but it seems to me that it is more difficult with the younger teens. But I do think also that it is an important formative experience for them to get that first job and that first time of being held accountable to other people. So maybe it's a question of not necessarily not hiring them, but maybe it's a question of, can I hire a little bit of a buffer so that I can pair my 18-year-olds with some of my older staff who are good role models for them, to sort of give them what it looks like to be the type of counselor that I want to have in my camp. But I hear where you're coming from, Alexia, where it just feels exhausting to have to put so much energy and resources into these young staff that don't seem to be living up to the task of the job that you need them to do.
It's just, Kate, it's just this year happened so many things that are, I cannot believe they happened. I mean, we were
Mm-hmm.
doing a um, fire drill in Greece. The one thing you have to do correctly is the fire drill, because there is a high risk for fires. So
Mm-hmm.
this counselor decided during the drill, everyone knew it was a test. He decided to stay in the room, lying down.
Mm.
All the other counselors went outside, his team, all the kids, everyone, except for this person. How
So
can I trust him
we won't
again?
be rehiring that one. No,
No,
that one has failed the test. That that's a big no for sure. But maybe that's a scenario question that you need to build into your interviews now. What do you
for
do in a fire
sure.
drill?
Not only interviews, also the training. I mean, I need
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
basic
Things you
stuff.
didn't think that you had to ask, but yes, here you are. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for all the sharing. I really appreciate that. We're going to move on to next some celebration of wins. So we're going to launch, hopefully, the correct poll this time. We're going to launch our continue poll. So you should see on your screens now the continue poll. So what do you think your organization needs to continue doing next season? What are things that have been successful? They are tried and succeeded. Maybe it was the first time you did them this year, but you definitely want to work it into the next year's traditions. Any happy moments? So things like that. And then the second question for this poll is, when you look back at your last camp season, do you feel like overall you would have more things on your stop list or more things on your continue list? If you went through and thought about your summer and wrote down every single thing that was a fail that you want to stop and every single thing that was a success that you want to continue, where do you think the balance would fall? Would it be more fails or more successes? So if you have more fails, then you're going to be ranking towards the ones, the 1, 2, 3s maybe. And if you have more successes, then you're a 5 or a 4. If you're right smack dab in the middle, that's your 3, I guess. Yeah. So when I think back to my summer of successes, the photo that I put up on the screen was a beautiful sunset, specifically at one of our Tuesday night barbecues that we had. And I would say that our Tuesday night barbecues were very successful this year. We did a little bit of tweaking to how they had been done in the past, and they were very well received. So we are going to continue doing things the way that we put into place this year. About 30 more seconds to add into the poll.
I'm gonna say that in Spanish what just Gwen said.
Mhm.
Si alguien quiere participar en español, lo puede hacer y con mucho gusto lo traducimos y explicamos a todo el mundo en inglés lo que quisieron comentar.
Gracias, Simon.
I would love to know what Carolina went through during the summer. She's, sitting there looking at us, lots of international campers coming to Spain, and we don't know
No,
anything.
no, no, no. I was very unlucky not to be in the camp this summer because of my injuries. But I was in contact online, and no, I heard that everything went really well, and it made me wonder why, when I'm active and I'm in camp, I get all the parents' complaints, and this year nobody has complained. Maybe because I wasn't there to answer.
They were just keeping it all to themselves because they didn't see
Yes.
the big boss available to
Correct, correct,
complain to. So you need to hide more, is what we're hearing. And you won't
correct.
hear any complaints. All right, I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. There we go. So it looks like we had some relatively successful summers. I'm glad to hear that. So we have a lot of 4s and then some balances of 5s and 3s, but nobody in the 1s. So I appreciate that part for you all. So let's look at some of your answers. So keep thinking about the happiness of children instead of just looking at camp as a business. I love that. Building more activities to fulfill the needs of new generations and adapt to the requirements of schools and parents. Would love to hear more about that if someone's willing to share on that. Online pre-camp video call, parents and counselor. Very interesting. So I'm wondering if that is a direct call between the parents and the frontline counselors so that they get to know who's going to be taking care of their kids.
Yes.
That's very interesting. Okay. Investing in our staff culture. Love to see that as well. Continue to delegate to assistant directors. Confidence to allow unstructured free time. Definitely. Delegation is very key to avoid burnout on the director team. We love to hear that. And unstructured free time. I remember that was something that I always really appreciated as a camper. I attended Camp Waro, where Gabrielle works. And as a camper, I found that the free times where you got to pick for yourself what you were doing, I mean, a lot of the time I was just finding a nice, pleasant space in nature to read my book because that's the type of kid that I was. But it was a very enjoyable part of my camp experience, certainly. Communication is a key point, hearing the expectations of our staff and actively working together to earn better results. Love a collaboration, absolutely. Support our staff and provide an inclusive environment that also challenges them to achieve higher goals. Excellent. We gave our team an extra amount of time off this summer and it impacted them more positively. I can see how that could be beneficial. Continue embracing the warm nature of our staff so they can recreate it with campers, parents, and participants. Very nice. Hiring a psychologist. We'll be interested to hear more on that one, Alexia. Continue different modes of communication to parents and staff, making sure to give them a view of camp and expectations before they arrive. Several pre-camp webinars with families. Very good. Creating excellent experiences for campers that take them out of their daily lives. So that actually harkens back to our last one where someone was talking about the difficulty that children are having with connecting without technology. Camp is that place where we get to break them out of that mold of being stuck in the technology side of things. And then we have consistent structure with our methodology to plan everything. Very, very nice. Excellent. Well done, team. So I'm curious to find the right piece of my screen here. How are you feeling in, one word, short phrase, an emoji, if that's your vibe? How would you summarize your camp season, your last camp season? Is it you can be very metaphorical and come up with something weather related, or you could just stick with an adjective that feels right. But tell us in the chat, how are you feeling right now about your camp season? Big heart. Great start. Excellent. A 100 emoji. That's one of my favorite emojis to use, actually, the 100 emoji. A little dancing lady. Carolina's back in action. Recovering, ready to flamenco dance any moment now. Life-changing, progress, excellent. Okay. Positive vibes. Simon has the sideways eyeballs emoji, so little eyes on perhaps.
Still undecided. I'm still thinking about it.
That's allowed. That is definitely allowed. Grateful. Wonderful. So, who will be my next interviewee? Who would like to share a story of their big win from the past camp season, something that they'd like to develop with the group? Well, the first summer after COVID that I had a good time. That's very relatable, Alexia. It's been some tough years for
Do you want
sure.
me to tell you about the psychologist?
I would love to hear more about the psychologist. Yes, tell us about that.
So at some point, the psychologists in Greece are a lot, very many people. So the government made it mandatory that every school must have a psychologist. And then, because it wasn't enough, it made it mandatory that every camp should have a psychologist to deal with issues of homesickness and stuff like that. So at first, it wasn't successful because the psychologists that came to camp had no idea of camp, and they thought it was going to be office work.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them, this is not your practice here. This is not what you're going to do. The parents don't bring the children so that you can have sessions with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different kind of thing, but you need to know camp. So I offered them, the job I offered them was as a counselor. I said, you need to get in the room and understand what camp is about. And then the second year, if you want to come back, you are a psychologist only, not a counselor, because you know how to do more things. Anyway, this wasn't working out. So finally, what works out is my office assistant is a psychologist. So her phone manners are amazing. It's not that she's very sweet with the parents. She is what she needs to be. So depending on the parent, she can be very polite. She's always very polite, but sweet or
Mhm.
more strict, let's say, depending on what is happening and what is the message here. And how they respond to her changes. How she, I don't know, she has a magic touch. Also, when we have kids that have difficulties adjusting at camp, somehow they wind up in the office and she talks to them,
Mhm.
spends like 10, 15 minutes with them, and they calm down, they go about, have fun, and come back the next day to say again their problems, but they are better and they stay.
Mhm.
So it works. I needed a
Excellent.
psychologist inside the office, also for
Mhm.
me sometimes, but but it works.
We all
It
need a
works.
therapist on call, absolutely. And do you feel like the amount of work that you put in behind the scenes to make that success happen, do you feel like now that that was worth it?
What do you mean with the psychologist
So
or
it sounds
generally?
like you went through a few like rough patches trying to integrate this into camp life, but you do want to continue it next year. So do you feel like the amount of work that it took was worth it to get to where you are now?
If they agree with the fact that they have to come as counselors the first year, because this woman came as a counselor
Mm-hmm.
2, 3 years ago. Then she didn't come back the next year because she had some other job she couldn't leave. But then she came back, and that's how she ended up in the office because my assistant at the time had to move to another job.
Mm-hmm.
So it was by accident. I had not planned it to work out
Fair
like
enough. So
this.
not a lot of work behind the scenes.
Because what she was doing, we have like various stations with activities around camp, like
Mhm.
soccer, theater, arts and crafts. And one station is called the traveling station. And this is where the camp psychologist does her thing, which is um, games and exercises that help you achieve a goal, like
Mhm.
express your feelings better, or
Mhm.
recognize your feelings, or team to build the team, or to learn how to be polite in a social setting because they have
Mm.
forgotten with COVID, and we need to say basic stuff again. And so
Yeah.
this is what she was doing, and this is what she was coming back for. So she wouldn't be a counselor inside the room; she would be outside and also doing this and be available for any kid that needed her. But
Mhm.
then she
Yeah.
started working inside the office, and it was better for the camp.
Mhm.
And I had another psychologist doing the traveling,
Yeah.
also
Very nice.
building this up.
Yeah. It sounds like what you're describing sounds like what I've heard referred to in North America as social emotional learning. And there's a few like schools and outdoor education programs and camps that are putting into place like social emotional learning as a camp activity. So doing these experiential learning exercises that allow them to develop their social emotional learning skills. So very interesting. Is there anyone else that would like to share a success from your camp season?
Yes, there's Denise
Hi,
there.
Kate. Yeah,
Yes, go
well,
for it.
I actually want to comment in something about what you just said about the psychology. Here in Peru, it's the other way around. We don't have camp culture, but we do have psychology culture all the way because here we even can have at schools one psychology per grade.
Mm,
Um, so it's not like even per level. So it's like big, like you expect to go to school and find a psychology. So when we hire like our leaders, most of them are psychology because they're the closest one that will deal with social well-being. Like they will get camp culture right away rather than someone else in the field.
mm,
That's what we
mhm,
found this last staff training that it worked us for us easily.
mhm,
So when you say like in what moments they are more responsible, what works this last camp that we have made it more smooth to our methodology was the journal was like a key component of what the expectation we want to actually get the outcome of the well-being. So for instance, if in our methodology, we start with all what it's awareness of who we are, our challenges, our strengths. In the journal, we have to have specific prompts that will lead for anyone, even whoever is the leader in that moment, participating of the tribe time, can use that prompt to be able to reflect towards that value that is awareness. So there, the psychology is key because she helps us to find like fun ways to do this, and it's not just, oh, okay, tell me what are your challenges. Now, instead of just saying direct question, like in a very, I mean, all the workshops we've done together with the ICF, we have also included some techniques there. But yeah, mainly it's like we can see kind of like everyone can have the psychology role, because you don't know when these conversations are going to happen, if it's going to be in a one-to-one or if it's in a game, and that game exactly will give opportunity to be able to develop the challenge of the kid, because before camp starts, they fill the camper profile. So in that camp profile, the parent fills out what are my challenges, what are the challenges of my kid, and what are the strengths, and what I would like the camp to focus during those days. So based on that, the tribe leader needs to work on that, but not necessarily the tribe leader's psychology. We make sure that when we are doing the planning, the psychology is more like, how do you say, like hop and go, like pop in, pop out in the tribe time. But they already did the planning with the journal. So we're kind of sure that we're all aligned in the structure of this methodology. That's what I meant when I also put that comment. And yeah, that's what we also liked this last summer camp, because it was not just myself or the people who are pushing the well-being. It was like kind of more smooth, like everyone in a way was towards that. So we really like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I found when I was working at a previous camp, one of the jobs that I added in one of my first years as director was a wellness coordinator, as we called it. Quebec has some very specific rules about what you're allowed to call yourself in certain jobs. So we went with wellness coordinator. But just by having the position of wellness coordinator, that it's someone's job to look out for mental health of staff and campers, and then that's explained and talked about as part of the welcome to camp, we found that the whole camp culture became a lot more open and conversational about having conversations about mental health. It was very, very fascinating change in the culture just by the existence of a role that hadn't existed before. Like, we care about mental health and this is what we're doing to show it. And it opened up the dialogue between everybody. So it was very, very nice. Thank you for sharing. Well, something I wanted to sort of highlight in this as we wrap up this section is who helps you celebrate these wins? Like, do you have some kind of a recognition at camp, like with your team of like, yay, this was a success that we had? Or do you share with your friends outside of camp? Or is this moment that we're all sharing together here, is this the first time that you have been able to take a moment to celebrate this success? So I think it's really important for our mental health as camp pros to remember to take the time to celebrate those successes. It's important for the long-term success of our organizations to remember what went well and how we made it happen so we can do it again. So this is your opportunity to make a note of everything that went well this season and how it happened so that you can reproduce the success next season, and so that you can take a moment to celebrate it, maybe with some of your fellow camp pro friends. All right, now is time for the big ideas, the brainstorm session. So let's relaunch my start poll. So what are your ideas, big or small, that you would like to start doing for your next camp season? And secondarily, what do you think you need more of to make this idea happen? Maybe you need more time, maybe you need more money or budget room, maybe you need a brainstorming pal from your ICF community, perhaps. Do you need more staff to get this going? Do you need resources from other camp pros? Or you got this, you don't need anything. You think you're going to be able to make it happen. So take a short minute to fill out the poll. And then we will dive in. Ooh, we have an idea for growing our own food. So someone maybe got inspired from our nature and environment focused session last season on ICF Academy, where folks were talking about gardens at camp. Practice team building within the team of leaders before the start of next season planning. So having your supervisory team doing some team building. More observation and appreciation of nature, making more activities of being present with Mother Nature. I love that. Would love to start short expeditions for older campers. I love that idea. I'm a big fan of a little out trip into the bush. Build a stronger leadership program, including my own development. Oh, I look forward to that for you. I love doing some personal development in leadership for sure. Change some activities for better or more entertaining ones. Yep. Maybe that goes along with some of your stops. Maybe you need to swap some out. More training for staff, implementing better emotional closeness with campers to help them with issues, and celebrating success. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you appreciate celebrating success. Absolutely. So next we will move to another share in the chat moment. Do you have any new ideas that you feel like you've gotten from other people's answers? So anything that you've heard so far from what I was listing on other people's start ideas, or maybe from their continues that you were like, oh, that's something I haven't tried. Any other ideas that you want to pop into the chat? Any inspirations that have been coming from yes? Yeah, team building for the leadership team. I have to say that was something that was a very good idea for me in my first year as director. I was coming in to a new camp for me, and several of the supervisory team had already been there before. So I took a bunch of them out to one of those escape rooms in the city where you have to like solve a bunch of puzzles to get out of the room. We did not escape the room, but we had a really good time, and we definitely learned a lot about each other and our communication styles before the summer got started. So I think that really helped us gel before we got started. Anticipating the complicated things in a creative and engaging way. Simon, would you like to expand on that a little bit? I'm interested in knowing what you mean by that.
Well, as Gwen was saying about what she did with the kids, I think we struggle a little bit this year with our staff in regards to the way we handle programs, and because we're expanding our operation and we're doing new things, sometimes they have grown used to the comfort zone. So we have to be more creative because we tell them like it's going to be hard and it's going to be difficult and you're going to face a lot of challenges. And then when it happens, they get really stressed. They have their burnout, not in the 7th day, but in the 2nd day. They want to go back home, and even though it is really fun because we had a program this year that was really challenging, and all of them were like, "Oh, I hate it here. I hate it. I hate it." And when we finished the summer, we asked them like, "Which was your favorite week?" "Oh, you remember that week? Oh, the one that everyone hated? Yeah, that was my best week." And so we need to think creatively how we can prepare them, how to build them, how to help them build their maybe wellness and work on this. How are we going to prepare them for the challenges ahead, but in a different way? How not only saying, not only practicing, not only we have to find new ways. So I love Gwen's idea, like when you find out this, be mindful because it's gonna mean this, and
Mhm.
I think we can prepare, maybe perhaps do a manual where you have all of these, maybe some videos, and we can just tell them like, oh, but we talk about this in video number 5. Just go back and check it. And
Mhm.
oh my God, it is my mistake that I didn't check those videos or took those videos seriously. So perhaps this is what I'm thinking right now about this, and I think it's going to be a way to deal with anxiety and some of the frustration we face during the summer.
Yeah. Something that Gabs has added in the chat is embracing type 2 fun, which is when we do tough things and feel proud afterwards. I think that that kind of ties together with this. What you're saying, Simon, is like the things that are sometimes the toughest or the most intense in the moment, and while you're going through it, it's just this is hard, this sucks, this is terrible, everything is awful. Sometimes those really can be the amazing moments that are the most memorable and the most wonderful memories out of camp. I know that like sending our kids on an overnight where they go and camp under the stars, that used to be something that we had a lot of pushback from our staff about, oh, I don't want to go on this overnight. I don't want to sleep on the floor. I just want to be in the cabin or the tent. Like, why are you making us do this? And then at the end of their session, that was always their highlight, the overnight with the kids. That was the best memory that they had of the whole season. So definitely some food for thought. So something that I want to highlight here is if there's anyone else who would like to share maybe one of their ideas that they would like to expand a little bit more on, I'm happy to do so. But I want you to think about what are the problems that you might be trying to solve with these new ideas? Like where are the points of contention, or what are the issues, the friction points that you want to solve with these new ideas? And maybe we can sit in our own discomfort a little bit on that one. Who would like to share any other ideas that they'd like to expand on today? Sounds like we have a few people interested in the pre-camp webinar, which I agree is a very good idea to get parents learning about things, because reading through the whole camp guide is not something that they do these days. But if you have a nice little interactive webinar, they're on board.
If you want, I can explain how we organize this.
Absolutely, please do.
Well, basically, we do open webinars for parents who are first timers, or they're going to bring their kids for the first time, which is a general webinar, and we do this maybe a month before camp. But then once they have all the information sent out, this started during COVID, because we did they brought the kids stop and go. They couldn't even get out of the car.
Yeah.
So we had to do this beforehand. What I mean is that in the past, they used to sit down, meet the counselor, explain everything from the medical point of view, or if they had any previous experiences in other camps, any information that the counselor would have beforehand that would help them if they eat well, if they need to be on top of the kids because they don't know how to shower properly, or they don't know how to put their laundry, or they don't realize something is dirty because they've never done it before. All these little things are now said online. And how do we organize this? We send out an email to the parents saying what time, and it's always the Saturday before they bring the kids. The kids arrive on Sunday, and this would be on Saturday. Each counselor has 10 students. So we tell them the exact time that they are going to connect. If they are not available at that time because they have other things to do, then they have to answer back to that email saying which is the time they can do it. And then they have that meeting. And in the meeting, they go over every single thing. And then at the end, well, we have less complaints, or less complaints in general, because they know what to expect. They get to know the counselor who's going to be looking after them. And even the kids get to know them first. So the day they arrive, they know, they've seen their faces, and things got really, much better. So we've kept it since COVID, and we're going to continue doing it because it works really well.
Yeah, we had a similar shift at my previous organization. We had been doing hosting like an in-person parent info night. And then when COVID hit, we decided to just move the parent info night to an online form. And then that meant that we actually got to capture a whole lot more families in the room for those, because if they weren't in Montreal, then they never would have been able to make it to the
Correct.
info night in person anyway. So it's
But
a good adaptation that's come through.
many open webinars, parents don't ask questions because there are other parents there. But when
Yeah.
it's one-to-one, they get to say everything they're worried about. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great idea. Thank you, Carolina. All right. So I will move right on forward to my next self-reflection. So our summer camp industry, we're all about innovation. We're running programs for the youth of today, and today keeps changing. So we need to constantly be changing and adapting with them to address those current needs. So how am I going to make sure that you're soliciting new ideas from your staff, from your campers, from your parents, or at least how are you going to demonstrate to them that you are open to those new ideas? Something to think about for your next season. And then last but not least, I do have a free resource for you. However, the little trick is you need to sign up for the ICF newsletter. So if you want to scan the QR code on your screen, or I'm sure Alexia will be popping the link in the chat shortly, you can sign up for the ICF newsletter and you will get a copy of the template that I'm about to show you. I'm just going to go through it very briefly. So we have an instructions for use on the first page, and then there are two pieces to it. So the first one is just a very basic summary page. This is where you can sort of use it as like a brain dump. All throughout the summer long, you can be having this as a tab on the side of your screen of what should we start doing? This is a new idea that was offered to me. Just write it down, write it down, write it down. What should we stop doing? Anytime that something is a bit of a hiccup and doesn't go well, you write it down, write it down, write it down. And what should we continue doing? These are the things where you get to celebrate those successes and you get to put them in here and have a constant running list of those. And then the next piece that I have for you is a little bit of a handout. You can use this as a printed template if you want, or you can put it into a Google form, whatever floats your boat. But it's an opportunity for staff members to do some self-evaluation and do their own personal sort of stop, start, continue, and do a bit of an end of season report. So what are their suggestions that they have for your organization? So these are some samples that I've put together for you, but you have to join our newsletter to get access to this. There are also a few general reflection questions as a sample in here, and perhaps the ICF Academy team may continue to add more reflection questions in here as we think of them, but for now, that's what we've got started with. So we would love to have you use this resource, and we would love to hear your feedback to know how you've been enjoying it.
Okay, thank you so much. This is absolutely brilliant. And then you swoop in at the very end with, here is how you can do this with your own camp. Here is a template. I just appreciate your attention to detail and always putting forward to help other people to just do what you just did. And it's interesting because when we're thinking about camp and you're asking your questions, I had to sort of stretch back a little bit to try to be like, oh, what's something that I want to stop doing? What's something do we want to continue doing? But just hearing our members talk about their issues at camp just brought back so many different ideas, and that's kind of the power of ICF Academy is this cross pollination of ideas and also shared issues. I mean, who knew? The picky eaters of the world unite.
Global phenomenon.
Globally, it's an issue. So I just appreciate, thank you so much for facilitating today. Thank you
My
so much
pleasure.
for kicking off our season 5. This was it's just so special. Like, our 5th season, you kicking it off, bringing that energy, and thank you to everybody that were brave to share their stories, for everybody that joined us today. and for people that filled out the polls. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank you, our team. We have Gwen, Alexia, Simon, Lucy, Jorgi, you, Kate, of course, and of course the board members that are helping us out with our ICF Academy, our little acorn that is growing into a very handsome tree right now. So I really, really appreciate that, and everybody that's here today.
Yeah, no,
So,
speaking of things that came out of COVID, ICF Academy,
well, you
5
know what?
seasons in.
Sometimes, yes, exactly. It's
No.
so wonderful. I think this is a nice place to wrap up. Unless
Mhm.
I've missed anything.
If you
Fair.
have been participating in this Zoom, you can feel free to shoot an email to info@icfconnect.net so that you can get access to both the newsletter and this free resource if you have not been able to get onto the signing up for newsletter. If there
Yeah.
are any other questions or if you think of anything else, Alexia has very kindly put my email address in the chat as well, kate@stefanrichard.ca. I'm available as a consultant if you would like to have a little mentoring chat about any of these different camp things that we can talk about.
Once you leave our Zoom chat today, you will see that there's going to be another little form. There you go, Gwen. Thank you for us to fill out. Gwen, do you want to share a little bit more why it's so important to give
Sure.
us this
Thank you
feedback?
so much, Kate and Gabs, for always leading us in exciting conversations. And tonight was fun, or this afternoon was fun to be able to hear different perspectives. So please, when this Zoom closes, you'll get a link that'll allow you to fill out some feedback on this session. And we're able to make adaptations. We're still planning sessions for the rest of this season. And so we would love to hear your ideas of what's working for you, what you'd like to learn more about, and how we can better serve you. So please be on the lookout for that poll. This is the first time it's in actually the Zoom thing. And so it'll happen automatically when you close out your Zoom.
We're getting better every year. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for joining us. You can follow us online, social media, Facebook, Instagram, X/Twitter, and LinkedIn. And here's our WhatsApp groups. Please join. There's some fun going ons in our WhatsApp groups, so please join in. We had just a picture posted of me with my awesome mug with my Thanks to Camp sticker just below it. But it's fun. There's shenanigans, but also great information. And our next episode is November 26th. Please put that in your calendars. Thanks, everybody. Take care.